on this rap-ish. I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list. Hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody's south of Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and ponder getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me, I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
That Dre season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it
I hate
for
these
us.
average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building. My whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
Grand Rising. Good morning, everybody out there. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and I am so happy to be back in the studio with my family and my favorite, Big O. What up, Big O? Happy Tuesday.
Bay Holiday.
Hey now.
She's a runner. She's a track star.
Man, we need to do a pre-show show up in here because it's lit before we go on air. We actually tone it down to go on air around here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We come in with the right energies, and you know how it is when we get together. Oh, it's going to be good energies all the time.
All right. So first, we're going to move through a few things here today because we have Joe Nguyen, State Senator Joe Nguyen, running for King County Executive. Joe Nguyen is in the building. So we're going to be talking to him. Also, we've got author Rosa, Nicole Booker in the house. And yeah, man, Rosa's going to be talking about her book and some other stuff. So that's pretty cool. We got a few headlines. Before we get into all of that, though, I want to remind you, right now is the perfect time to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share the stream with people who you feel could benefit from culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Now, before we move forward here, we got to give a shout out to our community. And, you know, I mean, we know our community here, but we also have our interstellar community. And, you know, today we can go ahead and bring this up. May the 4th be with everybody out there. And that's baby. Hey, that's baby Yoda Imani. That's Carlos Imani's little baby Yoda right there. May the 4th be with all of you. You know, we got our viewers here on Earth and then through the rest of the planets as well.
Absolutely. It is a perfect time to make sure that we give that shout out to all of you out there in the interstellar community. I love it.
Hey, man, may the 4th be with you. Also, right now, this is real big news. Vaccines. You do not need an appointment. Lumen Field Event Center, Rainier Beach, and West Seattle vaccination sites now accepting patients without appointments. This came over from the mayor's office yesterday. It is open right now. I think the mayor's having a press conference later on today with the Mariners and the Sounders. They're trying to get vaccines at games, vaccines at stadium, vaccines, whatever. You do not need an appointment, man. So if you want that vaccine, just rock up to the spot.
You know what? They've made it so easily accessible here. And again, when we look at other parts of the country, this is not really happening everywhere. So we really are fortunate in that regard.
Yeah. Also want to give a big shout out to KBCS 91.3 FM. That's over at Bellevue Community College. People are asking, why are we using these mics, right? Because it's real crispy. We end up with a lot of our audio on radio, 91.3. And then, so this is why we have the handheld mics. It's much better finished product. So big shout out to KBCS.
Yeah, what amazing partnerships, people picking up Converge and really loving the coverage. So it's awesome. Shout out to y'all.
And then I got a screen share right here. Speaking of audio as well, and another reason why we're using these microphones right now is that you can catch the morning show now across anywhere where you get your favorite podcast. So right there's a screen share of SoundCloud, but also you can catch the Morning Update show on iTunes, the podcast on Google, on Spotify, on iHeart, like anywhere. Just search Converge Media anywhere that you get your podcast, and you can check us out, man. Please follow us wherever people are getting their podcasts at.
Yeah, look at this, man. Converge is working hard over here to make sure, man, we are hitting you anywhere and everywhere. That's the beauty of the team here. We're making sure that you can get this news that is culturally and community relevant. I love it.
Yeah, we on the grind over here.
Yeah,
Ain't got me sweating under these lights. All right, so something else here is Brent Jones. Dr. Brent Jones. Go ahead and put this up. He did his thing. And Brent Jones said, over the next few critical months, I'm committed to moving swiftly to prepare for fall communications, our progress, and providing a consistent and high-quality educational experience for all students. I got the rest of it there. It disappeared on my screen, and it came back to my hat. Basically, Brent Jones signed the deal yesterday. 315 racks a year to lead Seattle Public Schools. Oh no, that's enough. There's some bad kids over there.
There's a lot of statistics. I mean, we've been talking about this. It's going to need a very innovative approach, and we'll see how he holds up to the task at hand. It is very serious, and we've been talking about the declines, particularly for Black students in Seattle Public Schools. So there's a heavy lift there.
Yeah, we definitely want to wish Dr. Brent Jones all the best. 14-month contract, interim superintendent for Seattle Public Schools, replaces Superintendent Juneau. And man, we'll see what happens. Seattle Public Schools, $1 billion school district, man. They still using paper and folders and carrier pigeons, ESP, you know what I'm saying? So everything over there with $1 billion budget. But man, maybe we'll get it sorted out.
Yeah, absolutely. The students need it, man. So when we're focusing on innovative solutions that keep them at the center, I think we're going to see, some changes here. And, Dr. Brent Jones knows exactly what he's up against, honestly. And so, again, we'll see how it plays out, for these students.
He's built for Dr. Jones is built for it. And I think one of the things is that he cannot become the actual superintendent or something like that. So, that's a real defined mission then, 14 months to make something great happen.
Yeah.
So we shall see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good to have you back on set, Trey Holiday.
Great to be back.
Man. All right. So this is good. We raced through a lot of the stuff here. I wanted to give a second to this is that, so we had Donita Sinclair here yesterday. And, people might remember that Donita's son, Lorenzo Anderson Jr., was murdered there right next to the CHOP on June 20th of last year. And had Donita here yesterday. Good conversation. No tears for once. You know what I'm saying? And somebody brought something to my attention last night off air. And they brought to my attention that a year later, people still, Lorenzo can't get no peace because the media is still saying like he graduated from alternative school. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're like he graduated from our alternative school the day before and this and that. And it's like, yo, why can't he just have graduated? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And and I'm getting ready to pass it over to you. It's like, why couldn't he just graduate? Why is it that we got to fight so hard just for the little shreds of humanity and dignity for our kids? You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't have to be like graduated from our team. It's over interagency. You know what I'm saying? But this is how our children are dehumanized in the media here.
I mean, you know what? It is something that is a national issue. And we know that oftentimes we've seen this throughout history, how, there are these monikers and negative characteristics that are put out there about Black people that are in the media, period, regardless of where they fall on the storyline, whether they're a victim, clearly in this case, whether they're a suspect. There's always these negative characteristics and words that are put with when it comes to Black folks. And so, you know what? It's unfortunate. And it's something that we have seen play out time and time again. But ultimately, he was a graduate and he pulled it together. He got himself through. And that is really the story that should be elevated there. Not about where he graduated from, but really that story of resilience.
So here you go. And, this is the best thing. Converge, we ain't got no big, huge archive, but, I keep all the receipts over here. And because, right after Lorenzo Anderson Jr. was murdered, that was the narrative that the media was coming with then, like, oh, he graduated from some alternative school, this, and that. And we knew 1 year ago, 3 days after he was murdered, we knew that as the Black media, it was our responsibility to give our children some dignity in death. And we actually had Lorenzo Anderson's teachers on air.
After hearing the news, felt compelled to come down, to pay my respects to Lorenzo, to honor his life in some way, because what I remember from him, he was a full human. He was somebody that, of course, had a lot of challenges, a lot of things society have put on him to keep him from being successful, but he fought through a lot of it. And his determination to come every day full of life. I mean, he could have come every day because of what's being thrown at him. He could have come every day and been angry and he wasn't. He was a happy kid, full of life. He'd come in the morning, Mr. Rubio, what's up? Just full of that life and zest, and wasn't coming in either to just be social. He was serious. He came in to also get his work done. He understood that there was an importance to education.
All right. And so, we can't depend upon Seattle media to give our children any dignity or humanity in death. And that's why we're here to continue to uplift our young people. It was just like whatchamacallit up there at NAM, where Anais Valencia, no one cared when the narrative is that the victims and the shooter might have known each other up in NAM. But it wasn't until that change of narrative that it's like, oh, okay, it was a random act of violence that people acted differently. And it's the same thing with Lorenzo Anderson Jr. It's like, oh, well, he graduated from some alternative school or whatever. But, we doing the job that other media won't do because they ain't willing to uplift our young people. And we followed through all the way with the teachers a year ago. So the story didn't just end with, oh, he graduated from some alternative school, whatever. Why don't you just say he graduated, period, and move on?
You know what? I agree. Oh, and I think that that's exactly why so much of you out there in the audience really appreciate the way that we tell stories. We go deeper, we dive deeper because oftentimes we're so connected to so many of these stories that are affecting community members and family members out there. And I think that it's a clear indicator of what you can do when you do actually dive deeper, when you do give time for, the teachers to come on, to be able to talk about him as a human being, to be able to talk about his excitement entering into the classroom every single day. It really does paint a different picture than what major media is doing, because oftentimes they don't have that time to dive in. And that's exactly why our approach in
Or don't
community
care.
media is so important. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, we know that too. But both of us having some media background here, we also know how they pick things up off the wire. They're not really sitting there with the time necessary to dive deeper. And again, if they can run with the same narrative and story that others are carrying, that's unfortunately what a lot of them do. And so this is why community media is so important.
Hey, you're gonna put some respect. You're gonna put some respect on our young people's names. That's what you're gonna do. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna continue to push back. You're gonna put some dignity and you're gonna put some humanity on our young people's names. And it's unfortunate y'all been getting away with this shit for a long time here. We go back to 100 years here in the media in Seattle, even further than that, where it's been an absence of dignity for Black people. Them days is over. We coming for you. I got one more thing right here. Continued conversation with Dr. Cornel West. Talked to Dr. West last week, and long-ranging conversation. We're gonna put the full thing up later on today. But this conversation right here, I told Dr. West about the trauma, the impact of being in media and then covering the last 1 year, and then going into that actual trial, the Chauvin trial, and what a clown show that was, and then Dante Wright and everything else. I asked Dr. Cornel West, like, what advice he had in dealing with the trauma, the impacts of trauma of covering the last 12 months, a lot of police violence across America.
Oh boy, that's a tough one, my brother, because you can just imagine, when you love folk and you care and concerned about folk and you see them abused and violated and murdered and so forth, that you just had to have an armor and had to have a cushion to fall back on. You had to have a community that you're able to share. We were talking about the vulnerability and the sense of community that's so crucial. I mean, one way of doing it for me, I find personally, is, for example, to read biographies like Ida B. Wells' Crusader for Justice. Ida, how did you do it dealing with the Red Terror when you wrote that text? When you wrote all of those texts dealing with lynching? How did you sustain yourself when you went down to East St. Louis in 1917 and just spent all of those days seeing the Black community so traumatized and terrorized? And she, as a reflection, so that's maybe some of the insights that she has 100 years ago can be brought to bear. And you can imagine other examples as well, when those in the past have been able to meet these things with such tremendous courage and tenacity and determination. But probably more than anything else, it's a matter of the quality of the community of the Black journalists. But how would you answer that question, though, brother? Because you probably know much more than I do as the grand Black journalist that you are, man.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, sir. And covering in here in Seattle, for Converge, it's been nonstop since that crime against humanity, the murder of George Floyd, and here into the Seattle protest, where we saw unspeakable police violence on a level that our city and a lot of the country had never seen here. And then going into the summer of protests and everything else, what I found myself, what I had to do is I had to isolate my emotions because, when George Floyd, when George Floyd was murdered, and I knew the protests were going to come here to Seattle, I had to make a decision. Do I get out there on the streets, or do I put on my journalist hat and tell the best story that I can in the most objective way. But one meant that being on the streets is that my emotions could be raged and dealt with in real time. But the other, putting on my journalist hat, meant that I had to bottle a lot of things up. And especially I wanted to be out there and be fair and be objective and hear as many voices as possible. It was impossible to do both. It was impossible to wear my heart on my sleeve and to be able to report and in the best and fairest way possible. The end result of that is, though, and a lot of Black journalists found that that's what they ended up doing. The end result is, though, is that while others were able to deal with their emotions of this last 12 months in real time, we haven't been able to. And you reach a point of saturation. You reach a point to where, man, enough is enough. And I remember 2 weeks ago, back when the trial was still going on, and we were watching this, and we were hearing the defense try to just say all these things about Floyd, and then all of a sudden there's Dante Wright who gets shot, and it was just overwhelming for us on set. I remember, I mean, we just broke down on set, and it was just an hour full of tears on set. But you know, that was the only way, to be honest with you, that we've been able to deal with it as Black journalists, is to bottle it up. But because we're so impacted, it isn't a lot of our colleagues get to report and go home. But even when we go home, it's still discussion in our dinner table. It's still discussion at the local restaurant. It's still discussion in church. We don't escape that.
And our precious kids and the children, as they are being traumatized, we got to try to talk, explain, comfort them as well. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, the trauma is real. And, you know, I love what Dr. West said there about, you know, that village that you fall back on, because I find that is, for me, such a strength. You know, when I think about my family, my spiritual community, you know, having these practices that I, you know, really help balance the scales for me. But it's clear, you know, every day, you know, there's things that we report on and learn about that are traumatizing in and of themselves. And, you know, we have to work together to find those outlets, because honestly, it is very different for those of us who are reporting on these stories than those who are just absorbing them as they come in and moving on. You know, we are just more connected to all of this. And, you know, for me, I got to be honest, like, I am a person that works day in, day out around Black liberation. And so there is also this constant battle that is really being fought in a way to just say that we matter, to just vie for equity, to demand that we be treated in a fair way. So it goes deep, man. And I'm glad that you were able to breach that subject with Dr. West.
Yep, putting a full interview with Dr. Cornel West up later on today across our Instagram and YouTube channels. Big shout out to the Northwest African American Museum for that connection right there. It's a big, big deal. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we got Joe Nguyen. Joe Nguyen, Senator, State Senator Joe. No, that's the wrong one. You see, that was the secret. There you go. Okay, it was on screen. All right. All right. We've got State Senator Joe Nguyen coming up right after this break. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury, joined right now by State Senator Joe Nguyen. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. If you don't mind, I mean, Lorenzo, such a powerful story that you brought it up today. Mr. Rubio, who you mentioned, is actually a friend of mine, and I spoke to his classroom, that high school that you were talking about. So I don't know if he was there that day when I was there a year ago, but that's such a powerful piece to be mindful that these are people in our communities that we need to show respect. And it's sad that that hasn't happened. And we stand with you as well from the Vietnamese community. Tommy Lay had a similar situation the day before his high school graduation. He was killed by law enforcement. So I appreciate you raising that voice.
Yeah, and you know, we carried the flag for Tommy Lay over here at Converge, as well as with Carolyn Bick from the South Seattle Emerald, because it was a bunch of funny. It was all about dehumanizing Tommy Lay. That was a strategy from jump, is to dehumanize Tommy Lay. And they kept playing that card until they couldn't play it no more and ended up having to settle. And these small things that you find, it, these narratives and media and everything else, it makes a tremendous difference.
It's gaslighting is what it is.
See, this is what I'm talking about, man. Listen, welcome to the Morning Update Show. We're gonna drop a few things for you here. You know what I'm saying? We don't already played this commercial accidentally like 4 times or something. But you're finally here, so we're gonna go ahead and play your campaign TVC.
It's been 16 years since King County was renamed after Martin Luther King Jr., and I believe it's time to live up to our namesake. It's time for us to fight for what we believe in. My name is Joe Nguyen, and I'm running for King County Executive. It's time we build a new vision for our region, a place grounded in equality and serves the needs of all people. Together, we can overcome any challenge, and right now, our challenge is to build a better future. We can change the policies that make the rich richer, while leaving the rest of us behind. What we faced this past year has given us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to address what the pandemic has exposed. Our communities continue to cry out for police accountability. It's time for the executive's office to lead the way and get it done. Homelessness has been an emergency for over a decade and nothing seems to change. We need solutions now because everyone deserves a safe place to live. Families in King County work hard every day to improve their lives. They deserve a leader who will work just as hard for them. Dr. King understood the fierce urgency of now. It's our turn to step up and get things done, because tomorrow is today. This is our time to fight for the future we want to live in. My name is Joe Nguyen, and I'm running for King County Executive, and I'm asking for your support.
Paid for by friends of Joe Nguyen.
Thank you for showing up.
All right. So, and yeah, and people know, man, because the other day I said Joe Nguyen, and they was going ham in the comments, man. I don't know what kind of army you got out there, but I know, like, I've been corrected. But good video. You know, you're breaking some stuff down. Why now?
Why now? I mean, time's up, to be honest. I think at this moment in time, as we recover from this pandemic, we need leaders with the integrity and the passion and honestly the lived experiences of failed policies to get us through not just COVID, but the racial inequities that we've been experiencing for generations. I think we have a one in a lifetime chance to make change right now.
Yeah, but okay. So that's a good answer. But you're going up against Dow Constantine. Dow's been the county executive for 12, how many years?
12 years.
12 years. He's been in the mix. Now, what you just said is you said passion, you said lived experience, things like that. What is executive Constantine not doing more specifically? They got you like, hey man, you know what? I need to run for this seat.
Well, I think one of the first times that I noticed it was actually the youth jail, right? So if our goal is to have zero youth detention, my route wouldn't have been to build a bigger youth jail. It would be to invest in communities, to lead from within and listen to people. And candidly, I wasn't thinking about this a year ago. We were focused on the pandemic and the recovery. And it wasn't until I saw breaks in terms of how the county was serving its people that I got really frustrated. We need to be able to have leaders who are listening in the community. Imagine that instead of having to fight to make sure that your voice was being heard, it was being uplifted and amplified. We had a great legislative session. I think it's because of leaders like that.
So are you saying that the county is ignoring a lot of their constituents?
Yes. And candidly, I'm from unincorporated King County. I'm from White Center. We've seen generations of underinvestments in everything from transit to education to affordable housing, things that we know we need to make us successful. So a lot of the inequities that we're seeing is either failed policy, but also just not having people at the table fighting for themselves to be able to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Now, you got a long history with County Executive Constantine. We got a motion graphic here, handcrafted. There it is.
There you go.
14-year-old Joe Nguyen was a page for then state rep Dow Constantine.
You like that haircut? And try and bring it. Man, should bring it back.
Now, interesting fact: when I was 13 years old, I was a page for Jesse Wineberry.
Oh, nice.
In Olympia. Yeah, I was a page too. And we looked, I called my mom. We were looking high and low for my page photo.
Yeah.
With my jacket and everything. You know, I was going to put it side to side again next to yours.
It's a great, if you're 14 to 17 years old, sign up for the page program. What a fantastic way to get involved.
Yeah. So, man, the county executive, that's a big job with a big, huge budget, lots of responsibilities. What makes you qualified for that position?
You know, what's interesting is as one of the political leaders, oftentimes you'll see people who get involved. They are lawyers, run for office, and then get to the executives level where oftentimes they don't necessarily have that background. I actually have more executive experience than when the incumbent first got in because I'm from the private sector. I've helped start small businesses. I've worked at some of the largest corporations in the world as a senior advisor for executives. I manage people, I manage teams right now. So in addition to have that public sector experience, showing that I can be successful in the political space over the past few years, I also have the private sector experience as well to be able to lead us forward.
What are some of the biggest specific challenges? So I know like in a campaign ad, it's only a minute and a half. It's difficult to drill down. You kind of got to paint broadly. But what are some of the specific issues impacting King County? And, you know, maybe you can pick and choose, like this is what's happening in, you know, something like unincorporated or White Center or Skyway, or this is what's happening with our waterways, or this is, I mean, you tell me, what are some of the issues in the county that people should really be aware of? Because a lot of times right here in Seattle, even though we're voting for a county executive, we might not understand some of the issues that are impacting the rest of the county.
Yeah, no, and that's a fantastic question. King County has a $12 billion budget, $12 billion. And there's about 14,000 or so people that work in the county. So almost every aspect of your life is impacted by the county, whether it's the buses, whether it's wastewater, whether it's the court system, whether it's the jails, whether it's the police. You know, all that stuff is related to King County. So a lot of the things we've been addressing at the state level has to be implemented at the county. Climate change, things like that, basic needs programs, behavioral health, mental health, homelessness, all of that actually is through the county. So you can do so much at the state level to get resources, to get funding, to get statutes in place to help. But really where the rubber meets the road, where it impacts our lives the most, the county level.
Right. And now, you know, when some of the things leading up to this, there was a few memes and everything else. It's like, yo, like Dow he's already perceived being very liberal. You know, some people would say very far left. And I mean, where does that put you in this next to Executive Constantine? Are you like further left than him, or more center than him, more grounded than him? I don't know.
Actually, the last one, I'm not heard about that one before, be more grounded. And in fact, I'm not from the political establishment. When I ran 4 years ago, I was told to sit down and wait my turn. I would never have a chance to win because I didn't have the proper support. I couldn't raise money. But what's interesting is I ended up winning by a landslide, even though I was outspent 4-1. So for me, it's less about political party or ideology. It's more so, do you have leaders who will show up and do the work and fight from within the communities to amplify voices? I think that's what we're missing. We have a lot of leaders who lead from the front. They'll show up to the press conferences, to the photo ops, but we need leaders who are going to be in that dingy community room talking to community members about core issues that they face as well. I think that's the kind of leadership that we need.
Yeah. So let's talk about, it was a few changes in the last election here that impacted the county. One was the inquest. Another one is the sheriff. And it looks like the sheriff is rapidly losing support.
Yeah, the guild came out today.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I said this back then that day. I was like, yo, man, should you just apologize? You know what I'm saying? Apologies go a long way, but it's like got entrenched and, it's all bad. But, the county executive, what role would the county executive have moving forward now, because the sheriff is going to be appointed instead of elected?
Yeah, it's an absolutely huge role. And I will just clarify that the reason why I asked for the current sheriff to resign is because I contacted Tommy Lay's family and I said, hey, I saw this happen and it came out. How do you feel? So I was reacting in response to kind of what the family members felt. And in this case right now, we're, again, a once in a lifetime opportunity to set the tone for policing in King County, because it is now appointed versus elected. You have a chance to pick somebody who views their job as being a guardian of the community and not just a warrior, right? Not just law enforcement. It's a guardian of the community. And if you set that tone early and upfront, we can change the way we handle policing in Washington State, because King County is the biggest county in the state.
Yeah. And, that King County Sheriff's Office has been under a lot of heat. A lot of that heat is warranted. Some of this stuff that's come out of that office there. Man, let's talk about something that's very near and dear to us here at Converge. You kind of started with that. We talk about gun violence, and especially youth gun violence. One thing that the executive has done is the executive council team, but especially King County Council member Gurmai Zahalai has found resources, as well as public health, Seattle King County, and the Zero Youth Detention, Derek Wheeler over at Zero Youth Detention. These guys have put together something called the regional approach, where they're looking at disrupting gun violence as a regional issue and communicating with all 39 different cities and unincorporated areas and trying to find ways to disrupt gun violence on several different levels. What are your thoughts on this? And as county executive, what would this be a priority to you, this issue of gun violence?
100%. Shout out to Councilmember Gurmai Zahalai. I was so excited when he ran for office. He had a very similar path as I did, told that he wasn't in line, told that he wasn't supposed to run, told him he couldn't win. And look what happened as well. Marcus Green actually had a great article about this in terms of where gun violence happens. And if you look at the historical context of our society, we used to spend the same amount of money on human services as we did on law enforcement and policing back in the 80s, before the war on drugs, which was racist and wrong. So we've gone from investing in communities to ensure that we alleviate poverty to criminalizing poverty and treating Black and brown people poorly because it was being linked to a racist war on drugs. And that is one of the things that we have to address from a systemic level, including funding for these projects and organizations that Councilmember Zahalai has brought up.
All right. We're going to take a quick ZYD break right here. Speaking of Zero Youth Detention, we'll take a quick ZYD break, and we'll be back with Senator Joe Nguyen, who is, man, I mean, that's what it says, a big step, county executive. All right. We'll be right back.
Public Health, Seattle King County, Zero Youth Detention, along with our partners from across the South King County region, are committed to reducing violence and creating the conditions needed for our neighborhoods to be safe and free of crime. Too often, the response to crime and violence has been a piecemeal approach with a program here and a program there. When family units collapse, schools fail to educate, the economy fails to produce jobs, and crime rises, we've looked to law enforcement and punitive measures to save us. Nothing could be more wrong or further from the truth. Law enforcement can't shoulder all the burden or take the rest of us off the hook. We are acknowledging the lived experiences of Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. We are centering community as the experts who can effectively identify key issues related to systems, policies, and practices that impact children, families, and communities of color across this region. Those most impacted by the issues will help call out and identify the root causes, including structural and systemic factors. 150 residents will partner with King County to develop strategies, solutions, and an action plan that explicitly addresses system changes needed and eliminates barriers to access for Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks. These residents will also identify the criteria used to measure our collective success. Simply put, we need your help as we do the work needed to make King County the safest in this country. It will take specific commitments from all of us, community members, our young people, elders, and leaders from the sectors all across this region. Together, we will get this work done. Please click the link below and sign up for a work group. Or you can recommend a co-facilitator from community for each work group. We look forward to hearing your ideas, concerns, feedback, and solutions as we build a community where all our children can be happy, healthy, hopeful, safe, and thriving.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and I get to be in the hot seat with Senator Joe Nguyen, who is running for King County Executive. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I mean, my question to you is going to come from a community perspective. And really, there has been a lot of pressure put on Dow Constantine's office to do some different innovative measures. How are you going to kind of answer that call if you're given the opportunity to take the seat?
Kind of like what we mentioned before, our job as elected officials should be to amplify and uplift the communities, not necessarily just lead from the top down. So in terms of just gathering information, it's making sure that we center those voices first. And it's not in a performative way. If they said don't build a youth jail, you don't build a youth jail. If they say close it down now, you don't wait until 2025, you close it down now. And we actually have examples of how to do this better, whether it's community facilities, smaller, more humane options. We can actually make this change. And what's interesting is oftentimes you'll hear, I'm sorry, this is a topic that I care about, so I appreciate you asking.
Absolutely.
But this is a thing that they'll say, oh, well, this was statutorily required. The Juvenile Justice Act in 1977 is usually what they're referring to. Nothing says you had to build a youth jail. You have to have a system to mitigate offenses from juvenile offenders, right? So our goal here is to treat people humane in a way that they can then re-enter the society in a way that they can be successful as well.
Well, I think that, you know, your answer tends to uplift a lot of what we talk about in community at a ground level and a grassroots level. There are ways of treating the whole person, right? And creating these systems that do just that. How will you empower some of those community actions that say, this is how we do it better? How do you do that as King County Executive if given the opportunity?
Well, what's interesting is that we've actually sent a lot of support from the state level. One of my first bills, so this is not a new issue for me. One of my first bills years ago was to allow for DCYF, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, to be able to have a referral system so that youth who get caught up with law enforcement don't even get diverted. So they don't go through the legal system, they get referred to a community organization instead, like a Choose 180, like a Safe Future, or something like that. We also helped pass legislation this year so that way where if there's a youth that is encountering law enforcement, they are obligated to have legal counsel. Rep. Jesse Johnson worked on that. That was a fantastic bill, being able to be mindful of how that impacts communities as well. Another one was the truancy laws. Truancy laws, they call the BECA bill, oftentimes the Senate Bill 5290, has been used disproportionately on our communities as well. So in addition to changing the statutes that allows for King County to implement it in a more humane way, we have to send them resources to do it as well. And that's what we've been doing. And now it needs to be implemented at the county.
You know, I think that I appreciate your answers to this because you're really mentioning a lot of these bills that are moving forward. And obviously, in your role as senator, you have some direct contact and direct impact in how that has been moving. But it feels like sometimes community is disjointed from that process. Oftentimes, it is like bureaucratic. It's language they maybe a lot of folks don't understand. How can we begin to bridge the gap so that the people that are at the center of a lot of these measures happening in policy and legislation, that they actually are playing a part in it?
So it doesn't just feel like they're disjointed, because it is. This system was not built for people like us. Systems of power tend to reflect the people who created them, and you can guess who created these systems of power. So we've always been outside of the system, and that's why I get in trouble sometimes, is because this system wasn't built for me. So sometimes I break the rules because I didn't know what the rules were. So in this past year, as an example, we worked with community members on issues around juvenile justice, on police accountability. And if you look at how consequential this last legislative session was, everything from police accountability, progressive tax reform, climate, childcare, all those things, it is not an accident that we now have the most diverse legislature in the history of Washington State, while we're being able to pass these transformative policies in addition to justice reform. And it's because you have the communities who are impacted by this at the table. So again, we've seen how it can work. We've seen how it doesn't work, but we can have a path for that in King County as well.
I think that that's so much of it. And we talk about, the fact that there is a clear mistrust between so many people on the ground living their day-to-day lives, sometimes stuck in survivor mode, and the connection between them and the politicians that are there to serve them. Yeah. And I think that, as King County executive, you have an opportunity possibly to really feel like, what? No, I'm listening to the people. So I appreciate your approach here.
No, thank you.
Lastly, I just got to ask you, so make sure the audience can hear this, tell them one more time why it is Joe Nguyen is running for this seat.
I'm running for King County executive because we need leaders with the integrity, passion, and the lived experiences of failed policy in order for us to fight urgently to fix these problems. We are at a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get past this pandemic, to do it not just for COVID, but also the racial inequities that we face every single day. And we need leaders who will fight for communities today and right now, and not just talk.
I agree with you. And, appreciate you being here again. I think our audience is always uplifted and educated when we can bring someone like you on to understand why you're making this change. So thank you again, Joe.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You guys, we are going to take a quick break here. And coming up, I am able to sit down and interview Miss Rosa and hear all about her book. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media. Welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. I am your co-host, Trey Holiday, and joining me right now is a self-published author, Miss Rosa Nicole Booker. Hi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I want to dive in because, oftentimes people are like, well, how do I even do this? Let's hear a little bit about your inspiration for your book, The Monster in My Room.
Absolutely. I mean, the inspiration for this book was life. life lived. We all have to live it, right? We all go through certain things. And I've always loved reading. I believe in fourth grade is when I was determined I was going to be a writer. And it was a process, but I just wanted to. I love when I read books and I find myself in them. And I just wasn't finding myself in as many as I wanted to. So that was my inspiration for someone like me that looks like me, that's been through stuff that I've been through, to be able to open a book and find themselves.
Well, I think that's really a solid inspiration. And let's let the audience know a little bit about some of the synopsis here in the book. What is it about?
Yeah, well, the book is about this woman who is just turning 30. She's got what seems like everything going for her. She's got the family, the kids, the house on the lake. She's got career after career, very successful, but she can't move forward in life. And it takes her husband to tell her, convince her, you really need therapy. And that's where she decides, like, okay, in order to really move forward, I've got to write down some things that are hindering me. And she begins writing out her memoir without even realizing that that was going to happen. And by accident, she heals through writing.
Wow. I mean, I think that you're really hitting a hot topic. I mean, we understand that there's a lot of different things and measures. And I just learned this, like there's two different kinds of joy, right? And so one of the kinds of joy is like this materialistic joy, this kind of outside joy that comes from the outside world. And the other joy is an internal joy, right? And so I just wanted to ask if you feel like that's something that this character, the protagonist here, is really discovering through this journey.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. That's what was stopping her from moving forward, is she just couldn't find that. She thought it was in material things, but it really was an inner thing that she needed to move that block out of the way.
I think it's a revolutionary story, and especially right now in the times that we're facing. We see so much brutality. We talk about it on the show here all the time, whether it's gun violence, police brutality, whatever. And we're just kind of inundated with it on our screens,
right.
All on our tablets. I mean, it's everywhere, right? On our cell phones, we're just seeing these news stories come out. And I think that many people can find themselves in this book, because I feel like that is really a sign of the times. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. In this book, what I tell people, the theme is mental health awareness, because a hashtag I use is not alone. The character in this book deals with some sexual childhood trauma, but literally I've had people come up to me after reading this book, coming to a reading, and I mean, young to old, black to white, in between, women, men, saying, this is something I needed, confessing things to me that they've never confessed to people their whole adult lives. And it's a thing we show up and we're hiding everything, and because we feel like we have to.
Yeah.
And so what I really highlight in this book is we shouldn't have to hide that. Like, let's normalize that we all have a mental health block because we think someone else doesn't want to see that in us. And that's why when we have these police brutality incidences and shootings and murders, we're just desensitized because we think we have to show up and not feel anything. And the shirt that I have that goes along with this book, the book is called The Monster in My Room, and on the shirt it says, I survived the monster in my room. And that monster is not that traumatic experience that happened to you, that person that harmed you, hurt you, abused you, the situation that you're in. It's what you're left with after that's happened. And then we still have to move through life. You lose someone, you still have to move through life. So that's the monster, is how do I move in this space with this thing that has happened? Because we can't undo that. But we do have to be present and move forward, right? And so that's a lot what happens in this book.
Well, I think that, forward progress is something that we all have to achieve some way, somehow.
Yes.
And so there's a really overarching message here. Also, too, what I'm hearing is breaking the facade. I talk about being my authentic self in all the spaces that I enter, because I realize that without doing that, I'm actually putting more pressure on myself in terms of, again, being there for what people want me to be versus what I actually am. So, this is a great message, honestly, Rosa. And I'm so glad that you were able to come on today. Tell us a little bit more about the book. Make sure the audience knows how they can catch up with you and get this fabulous book.
Yes. Well, you can find me on www.rosiecoleyb.com. If you're on Facebook, you can find me at Rosie Coley B Writings, and on Instagram at The Monster in My Room. I would love to connect with you. I would love to get you on my mailing list and send you invitations whenever I'm doing the next book reading.
Amazing. And you know what? Just kudos to you for putting it out there. Sometimes these kind of stories are hard to tell, but it's amazing to hear that people are finding their own transformation through your writing. So thank you for sharing this with the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You guys, that was Miss Rosa Nicole Booker with her book, A Monster in My Closet. You guys just heard about A Monster in My Room. You guys just heard about how to find it, how to heal yourselves through some of these readings. And I'm glad that you were here today. Stay tuned, you guys. We'll be right back. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media. Welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. I am your co-host, Trey Holiday, and joining me to close us out is my guy, Big O. What up, Big O?
Yo, I mean, man, what a good show. We had Senator Joe Nguyen running for King County Executive, and then you had Rosa Nicole Booker, author, come in here and chatting it up about her book.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a really great show, jam-packed. And I love when we can provide the audience with a wide range of information.
Yeah.
So it was great. Great lineups today.
Yeah. Any last words for today?
Yeah, I have a couple of last words. And you know, you guys know I'm always saying, hey, see yourself as a part of the solution. And so you guys can do that. There's some urgent actions happening today. There's a city council meeting at 5:30. You guys can look it up on the government website. But ultimately, we have to start pressing city council. They have $200 and almost $40 million that they're going to be allocating to the community. And you guys, we have the opportunity to say, we need monies directly going into Black communities. And when we have a collective voice saying the same thing, we see how that moves and affects change. So that's one of the ways that you guys can see yourself as a part of the solution. And I'm hoping to bring you guys more advocacy and action things that you guys can participate in, because that's really what it's about. Not only should you see yourself as a part of the solution, I'm going to give you ways to be a part of the solution.
Well, all right. It's all about being part of the solution. I think we got a gist added for tomorrow. Justin Farrell. Need to confirm. Justin Farrell running for mayor of the city of Seattle. And Justin wrote an open letter a few weeks ago about this uptick in gun violence in the city. And so it'll be interesting to talk to Justin more about that. You know, we've been wanting elected or aspiring electeds to say something. So, and then also tomorrow we have a handcrafted motion graphic for it. We have Dennis Comer of the Central Area Collaborative, and they're talking, coming in here tomorrow, talking about it's a day of giving tomorrow. Today and tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They want people to give them money. so he's come in and tell you why you should donate. So be here as well. But man, great show today. It's good to have you back on set, Trey Holiday.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Oh, I missed all of my Converge family and missed the audience and being in these chairs.
Oh no, we already moved past that. All you, it's all good. Yeah, she was talking about it.
No, it's okay. All good.
Hey, just know it was there.
It was.
All right, everybody. We're gonna get ready to get out of here, and as usual, want to remind you to go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity, and until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.